Hi, welcome again to What? Series 15, and this is number 3, and we're going to talk about how Isaac repeats some of Abraham's sins. Okay? So verse 1 of this chapter goes in verse 26, chapter 26. Isaac responds to the famine that's happening on. It says, there was a famine in the land besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Okay, famines happen. There's a famine in the land, and though Isaac had lived in the land God had promised to his father, Abraham, and his descendants, it did not mean that life on the land was without trouble or challenge. As there was a famine in the days of Abraham, and that's way back in Genesis chapter 12, there's a famine in Isaac's day. And I know our countries, some of our countries got too much rain and the other half of the country's got not enough. It's a weird situation, isn't it? But Isaac went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines in Gerar. And Isaac starts to go south towards Egypt, as Abraham did in the famine recorded earlier. It seems that Isaac thought to travel along the most famous road at the time between Egypt and Canaan that went along the Mediterranean Sea. Now, Gerar is the same place where Isaac's father Abraham met a previous king, Abimelech, and also compromised his wife. You need to look at that in Genesis 20. A similar story, comparable in actions, of both God and men, and it will play out for Isaac. Now, the ruler of Gerar was called Abimelech as a title, but it's probably not his personal name. That's why Abraham and Isaac both dealt with Abimelech, but it's not the same dude. It goes on in verses 2 to 5, and God sort of proclaims the covenant to Isaac. It says here in verse 2, then the Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land which I shall tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For you and your descendants I give all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father, and I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my commandments, my statutes and my laws. Here he's told not to go to Egypt. He's told that as he's traveling south. God made a specific appearance to Isaac and warned him not to go any further. Isaac was always to live in the land that God had told him to live in. Okay, you're seeing some difficulty for Isaac here. He's the son of promise and was always to live in the land of promise. If Isaac did it, well, God promised to be with him and bless him. But sometimes we step outside of God's will, don't we? This appearance of the Lord may have been a human appearance, just like the Lord appeared to Abraham in Genesis 18. It may not have been. We don't know whether this was a vision or a physical appearance. Isaac's father Abraham understood the importance of Isaac remaining in Canaan. He commanded his servant not to allow Isaac to leave the land to go and get a wife. He had to stay there. And he says within that, I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. So in theory, it was possible for the covenant to end with the passing of Abraham, but God was true to his word. The covenant God made with Abraham was not only for Abraham, but also for his chosen descendants. This fulfillment of a specific promise to continue the covenant with Isaac and Isaac's descendants was significant for us as we look at the flow of the Old Testament. This formal repetition of the covenant included a couple of aspects which first were communicated in Genesis 12, 1-3, and then repeated at various times to whoever is in charge of the family of the Jews. Firstly, it's the promise of the land. It says all these lands. A nation, your descendants will multiply as the stars of heaven. A blessing in your seed, all of the nations of the earth shall be blessed. You see, that's the crux of what God was saying to these people. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge is a statement that is in that passage as well. And God kept his covenant with Isaac because of Abraham's obedience. A close look at Abraham's life will show you that, yeah, it wasn't complete obedience. He did a fair bit of stuffing up at different times, yet God recognized it. God could say this of Abraham because God was declared righteous by faith. If you want to look at that, that's in Genesis chapter 15 and verse 6. The righteousness accounted to Abraham was the righteousness of God himself, not Abraham always being right, but God gave his own righteousness.